You're watching the Daily Roundup by People's Dispatch, where we bring you some of the top stories from around the world. Let's take a look at the headlines. Postal workers in the UK vote in favour of industrial strike action. Iran, Russia sign $40 billion oil gas deal, launch Rial-Ruble trade. Ecuadorian gang-related prison riot leaves 13 dead, 2 injured. Turkish court upholds its exit from treaty on violence against women. Royal Mail postal workers have overwhelmingly voted to go on strike, stage walkouts and carry out other industrial strike action this summer, according to news reports on Tuesday, July 19. Workers decided to vote in favour of strike action over several long-standing issues they've been facing, such as low wages and rising inflation. According to the Communication Workers Union or CWU, 97.6% or more than 115,000 workers who voted approved the strike action, with the voter turnout reported at 77%. If the strike eventually takes place, there would possibly be the biggest industrial action by workers in the UK this summer. The workers demand a salary increase in line with inflation levels in the country, which currently is 9.1%. The rate of inflation is expected to reach 11% by end of this year. Royal Mail has offered only a 5.5% pay raise in the past, with the previous 2% raise already rejected by workers. No dates have been announced yet for the strike. News of postal workers voting to take strike action comes amid an intensification of worker struggles in the United Kingdom. On July 11, the Tory majority House of Commons passed a series of regulations that increase fines against unions for industrial actions deemed illegal and allow for agency workers to replace workers on strike. The Conduct of Employment Agencies and Employment Business Amendment Regulations 2022 has been widely condemned by trade unions and progressive sections across the UK for its anti-worker, anti-strike character. They have dubbed it the Scabs Charter. However, the intimidation tactics of the Tory government have not succeeded in discouraging unions from taking action and continuing their fight against austerity. On July 13, the National Union of Rail, Maritime and Transport Workers, or the RMT, announced its decision to go on strike on July 27, August 18 and August 20. These massive industrial actions will see the participation of over 40,000 workers across Network Rail and 14 train operating companies. On July 14, the Associated Society of Locomotive Engineers and Firemen, or the ASLEF, the train drivers union, also announced a day of strike action on July 30. Rail workers and other sections of the working class already distressed by the COVID-19 crisis are being pushed to the brink by the ongoing cost of living crisis marked by skyrocketing fuel and food prices, with no comparable increase in their salaries from the government. Iran and Russia's state-owned oil companies have signed a massive deal worth $40 billion to embark on joint investment projects in the oil and gas sector, according to news reports on Tuesday, July 19. The National Iranian Oil Company, or NIOC, and Russia's Gazprom reached the agreement, which would involve the two companies jointly working on projects in the Iranian oil and gas fields. These include projects such as the massive $10 billion project in the Kish and North Pars gas fields in the Persian Gulf and a $15 billion project to boost pressure at South Pars, the world's largest gas field on the maritime border between Iran and Qatar. The Memorandum of Understanding was signed by NIOC's chief Mohsen Khojamesteher and Gazprom's deputy chairman Vitaly Markelov by video conference. The two companies will reportedly also increase cooperation in finishing liquefied natural gas or LNG projects, along with building additional gas export pipelines. They will also enter into swap deals involving natural gas and petroleum products. The NIOC chief hailed the agreement between the two countries as the largest foreign investment commitment on record in the entire history of the Iranian oil industry. Meanwhile, the two countries are further strengthening their bilateral relations, with the Central Bank of Iran, or CBI, Governor Al-Sahel Abadi announcing the launch of Iranian Rial/Russian Ruble trading in Iran's foreign exchange market. He said this decision was taken to end the dependency on and global domination of the US dollar as it has increasingly become weaponized and serves as a political tool for the United States to conduct economic warfare against other countries. Notably, both these announcements were made just before the scheduled visit of Russian President Vladimir Putin to Iran. Putin is visiting Iran to attend a summit along with Turkey and Iran, aiming to resolve and ultimately end the Syrian conflict. Moving on to our third story, on Monday, July 18, a new riot was recorded at the Bella Vista Social Rehabilitation Center in Santo Domingo City in Ecuador. In this latest episode of violent confrontation between rival gangs in the country's prisons, 13 inmates were killed and 2 were injured. The National Comprehensive Care Service for Adults Deprived of Liberty, or SNAI, the agency in charge of Ecuador's penitentiaries, reported on Monday afternoon that a fight broke out inside the center and that upon learning of this fact, the support of the National Police, Armed Forces and Ministry of Public Health was immediately requested. About 2 hours later, the SNAI reported that with the help of personnel from the National Police and the Armed Forces, it managed to retake control of the prison, and that unfortunately, center staff currently reports 13 PPL, or persons deprived of liberty, dead and 2 injured. The SANI added that the Attorney General's office would carry out a verification of the deceased and the injured victims. According to Ecuadorian newspaper El Comercio, clashes were also recorded in the El Inca prison in the capital Quito. The situation was brought under control and apparently did not escalate. In the past months, similar riots and fights have been recorded in both prisons. On April 25, a riot alert was generated in the El Inca prison. According to the Interior Ministry, 15 inmates were injured in that incident. Earlier on May 9, 44 prisoners were massacred and 13 were injured in a riot in the Santo Domingo prison. The majority were killed with knives or other sharp weapons. During the riot, 220 inmates escaped from the prison amid the chaos, although almost all were recaptured. Ecuador's prison system is going through a severe crisis since 2021 due to riots and massacres of prisoners resulting from clashes between rival drug trafficking gangs vying for control over prisons and drug trafficking routes and territories outside the prisons. According to official data since February 2021, over 400 prisoners have been killed in 7 prison massacres. The Inter-American Commission on Human Rights has said that Ecuador's prison system is affected by the abandonment of the state and the absence of a comprehensive policy, as well as the poor conditions for inmates. The country's prisons house about 33,900 inmates and exceed their maximum capacity by 12.5%, according to official figures. And finally, a Turkish court on Tuesday, July 19, upheld the president's decision to take Turkey out of a European treaty protecting women from violence. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan had last year pulled Turkey out of the Istanbul Convention on Violence Against Women, sparking protests and condemnation across the country and in the international community. The administrative court ruled that decision to be lawful. The court said in its judgment that the president has the right to discretion when interpreting Turkey's laws. The decision led to widespread concern and fears over the issue of violence against women and women's safety in the country. Women's rights and other civil society groups such as the We Will Stop Femicide platform called for the courts to reverse the decision. They also urged people to launch and take part in protests and demonstrations against the ruling. The court was reportedly hearing a petition against the president's decision, which included testimonies from prominent women's rights activists and legal experts. It is not clear yet if the court's verdict will be appealed or not. The European treaty at the center of this ruling was signed in 2011 by 45 European countries and the European Union as an institution. The treaty aims to protect women from violence and promote and advocate for more gender equality, less discrimination on the basis of sex or gender or sexual orientation. It calls for appropriate legislation to be drafted and passed in the member countries, as well as educational and awareness campaigns and programs regarding these pertinent issues, including strict punishment for gender-based crimes and violence. However, Turkish conservatives, including the president and the ruling party, claim the treaty promotes homosexuality since it stipulates non-discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation. The World Health Organization statistics note that at least 38% of Turkish women are subject to domestic violence, with women's rights group also stating that this year so far, there have been 226 cases of femicide in Turkey. And that's all we have for today's episode. For more such stories, visit our website peoplesdispatch.org and follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram.